You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
يلمين هناك لشوارزنيجر
Va a pegarle Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! 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 ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Welcome to Soccer Today. Ich bin Duane. I say that because we're going to talk about the Bundesliga in a second. I don't notice how to say this is Kevin, so we'll just leave it at that. I took German in first-year university for half of a term, and all I remembered how to say is I am Duane. I can count a little bit too, but that's not very good.
I can count in German.
Ein, zwei, drei, drei, fünf. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, I don't know German at all. But
there you go.
I was looking at the news this morning, and the Tampa Bay Rowdies have re-signed a few players, and it seems like they're really gearing up for MLS because they already signed Tam, so that will be interesting for the future. A little bad humor to start.
Where's his Gam holding out for more money?
Yeah, Gam is holding out, and we'll see for the rest of the Am family.
There you go. Yeah, that's. I used to make the joke for years. It's like the Irish International allocation. So AL space O dash. Yeah, it was the biggest traded player in MLS history. So
poor guy.
Certainly, yeah, always traded Al.
Every single month he changes teams.
Yeah, poor guy. Allocation. Lots of fun stuff there. But Tampa Bay. You know what? I think that if Miami doesn't get its blank together, that there is a very good chance that the Tampa Bay Rowdies will be a team that finds themselves in Major League Soccer. And I know there are a lot of people out there because of their association with the NASL and their high association with the NASL. They were one of the more aggressive teams, one of the bigger brands associated with sort of the anti-MLS aspect of NASL at times.
But they were the first team this year to decide to make the transition.
Exactly.
They started the whole damn thing.
I think that the MLS likes the idea of two teams in Florida, and they'd rather it be Miami. But if Miami doesn't get its stuff together, they'll move on because Tampa is a viable option there. But I also think, conversely, this wasn't on our topic list, but we'll finish the thought now. I also think, conversely, that that the only way Tampa gets in is if Miami can't come in, and that would be unfortunate. Tampa's beautiful. I like Tampa. I've been there several times. It's a lovely city, and I'd be more than happy to take a March road trip down there to watch Toronto FC. I don't know about you, Kevin.
Well, speaking of road trip, it was announced, and the combine and the draft is a few weeks away in LA, Duane. So we're not going to do the trek, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in the draft and all that. But just a few days away, the Impact starts his training camp January 24th, and today it's Andres Romero's birthday. Unfortunate last 19 months for Andres Romero. Hopefully he comes back eventually with the Impact, or at least hopefully he comes back playing.
Yes, if anyone wants to crowdsource this to LA, we'll be more than happy to go. But nonetheless, we'll move on from that from now. We did say off the top that I wanted to talk about the Bundesliga a little bit today because they're about to go in their winter break, first off, and that is something that I think more leagues in Europe need to do is the winter break. The German league has been very successful with it over the years. It is a bit of a lull in it, but it does allow you to refocus and kind of have a first half Christmas champion, so to speak. And I know that Bayern Munich, in the lead up to this game against RB Leipzig, have very much spoken about how they want to be top of the table at Christmas time so that they can claim that sort of fall championship, unofficial championship there. As I just said, it is Leipzig v. Munich today to close out that season, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. By the time many of you listen to this, it will be done. Certainly, we'll try and give it a little bit of attention in our shows ahead this week, scheduled to be determined on that one. We'll let you know.
Kevin, you know what's interesting to me, Duane, is a literally battle for top. The only thing separating those two teams is differential, which is in Munich's favor. But Leipzig, same amount of games played, same amount of wins, same amount of losses, same amount of draws. Leipzig really the surprise team in the Bundesliga this season. And I was watching on my television, on my tele, I was watching the coach of Leipzig talk about how some people asked him question. He's like, are you Leicester? Are you the Leicester of the Bundesliga this season? He's like, I'm just looking at my next game. I'm just not thinking overall. Yes, everything is possible. We have seen that happen, but I'm just thinking about the next game. Brings me back to how Ranieri was talking about last year. Like, stop it with your title talk. Let's just talk about the next game. We'll see after.
And certainly there's similarities in terms of, if you remember to a year ago now, Leicester and Manchester City played a game in December in which going into it, had City won the game, they would have drawn, I believe, within 3 points of Leicester with a game in hand at that point. But instead, Leicester, handed them their ass basically at that point in time. Leicester has City's number, as we saw last week. So at any rate, at that time, that was kind of one of those defining moments of the season where you started to go, you know what, this team maybe is the best team in the league. And so Leipzig has an opportunity today to really prove to a lot of doubters that they are for real in terms of this title chase. But I do think that if you look at Munich, this is a club that, Ribéry doesn't make the starting 11 all the time. When Ribéry is sitting on your bench, you've got some depth that very, very few clubs in the history of the game could ever really speak to. So I do think Munich probably has enough to win this sprint over the course of the year. But the Leipzig model offend a lot of Germans because it is corporately owned, not community owned. There is a lack of history there. The Germans generally are a little bit leery of those kind of ownership structures. So that's not a beloved team by any means. But nonetheless, I think that if a German fan that is open-minded takes a step back and looks at what this league has become in the last few years, it's a very competitive league beyond the first spot. Looks what it's become at the top. They should be happy that Leipzig is challenging at this point, Kevin.
Yes, but I was talking to you early off air. It reminds me of the Premier League last year, literally, because you have club like Eintracht Frankfurt, not necessarily going out of nowhere, but just a town next to it, not really far from nowhere, coming out and performing and be third in the Bundesliga right now. Dortmund, which usually battle for the second spot or fourth right now, not too far away, but still not firing on all cylinders. And team like Offenheim, surprisingly, in fifth. Hertha Berlin in sixth. They were battling for relegation a few years ago, if not last year. And now they're sixth. FC Köln, a newly promoted team over the last few years, now seventh in the league. Leverkusen, who was expected, which were expected to be higher up in the table with the likes of the Chicharito, are having a little bit of a slump as well as in Europe as in the league. And they're now down to eighth. So it's a weird year. It reminds me really, really of the Premier League last year, like Chelsea struggling and all the teams struggling gave spot and place for a Leicester to come in. Leipzig could be that, or even other club that finished higher than anticipated.
Yeah, well, and I look at the bottom here as well, and you've got Schalke, you've got Wolfsburg, you've got Gladbach, you've got even Bremen. If you look back a few years ago, a decade or so ago, those are four teams that have all within the last decade been in the conversation for Champions League spots. Bremen might be a little bit further back. I'd have to look it up for sure, but nonetheless, it's a storied team there. Certainly Wolfsburg, Gladbach in the Champions League this year. Schalke was in the Champions League 2 years ago. So these are teams that have had a large degree of success that are now struggling below that halfway line. And then when you look in the case of Gladbach and Bremen, they aren't safe from certainly the playoff relegation spot, if not even dropping into the automatic relegation spot. Although Gladbach's 4 points up, Bremen is 3 points up with the automatic drop, and add one more point to that if you want to figure out where they playoff one. So certainly it's a very competitive league. And I know you've been watching a little more of it this year than maybe in past years, but certainly it's a very enjoyable league.
Yes.
Kevin, what has really jumped out at you?
If the production values were up to par to what we see in the Premier League, the television package, it's better than it used to be. Like, it's not like watching it on Gold TV, but it's still not up to par and not hyped and promoted the way the Premier League is. If it was, this league has all that it needs to perform at the highest level. The fan supports is bigger and better than you see almost anywhere in the world. It's like Montreal, Toronto times the whole season. Just Dortmund, the wall. You have all those aspects. Even Munich, the Allianz Arena, it's impressive. And other teams, some of the community teams have amazing displays of tifos of just singing the whole damn night. Walls. We're not talking about cups here. We're talking about walls in Germany, and it's really fascinating. Speaking of walls, you will be seeing one in Major League Soccer for the first time in Orlando starting next year. But that aspect of the support of the production values of the actual quality of soccer being played, it is very fascinating and spectacular to watch. The colors as well, it's something weird, but jerseys, colors, as it's really different. It's not cookie cutter. It's a league. It has its own identity, and that's what makes it, for me, one of the best league to watch in the world. And that would have been very different last year, but this year, for maybe because my access to it is better, yes, but I do have it ranks higher in my preferred league to watch. Of course, Major League Soccer, Premier League are my two main focus, and I would say Bundesliga is battling for third and fourth right now.
It certainly, if we're going to rank the so-called, the big five leagues, we know which is fifth.
You know France, that I meant my interest, right? Not in the world of like
no, I understand.
I don't
Major League Soccer is not ranking in the top four. Yes,
but it is the league that I cover, so for me, it is my main point of interest.
Yeah, no, for sure. And mine are the same. MLS followed by probably MLS, Premier League, USL. NASL would be my top four, which would not rank top in the whole world. But nonetheless, when you're
by the way, Duane, breaking news. After the break, we're going to talk about the home openers from MLS. They were just announced. So I'll bring those up during the break, and we'll talk about it after the break.
Oh, is TFC is in June again? No.
I don't know. I'm opening the email, so you talk.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about Leipzig again real quickly, because I think what you mentioned, the production values is one thing that holds the Bundesliga back, and there's certainly an aspect to that. A lot of their good coverage is in German. There's not a ton of great English language coverage like you see, all over the world with the Premier League being an English country. It makes sense, but nonetheless, that does hold it back. But I think the other thing, quite obviously, in the same way that La Liga is sometimes held back, is that there's not necessarily a title race. This was different about 10 years ago. Munich had a bit of a stretch where it wasn't necessarily as dominant as it is now. And during that time, I think the Bundesliga had more appeal to more people. But you need competitiveness at the top for that championship, I think, to really draw in the audience here in North America in any big numbers. And if Leipzig does continue program this project that they've done, as much as it may not be appealing to certain German fans out there, I think that that's going to be nothing but good for the Bundesliga, because it will provide them with an enemy, with a bad guy. Everyone, Luke Skywalker needs Darth Vader, right? And Leipzig could be Darth Vader in this case. It will also, it trickles down when you are taking away. Right now, the Bundesliga in the last few years has been Munich at the top, getting 80% of the best players, and then Dortmund picks up like 15 of the next 20%, and then the rest are spread out for 5. If you start taking away from those other programs, you start to get this trickle-down effect, which makes the entire thing deeper in terms of the competitiveness. And we see this in the Premier League right now, and you could directly tie it to Chelsea and City getting their money. Suddenly you had what was a pretty entrenched Big Four became a Big Six, and then that Big Six eventually spread out even further, because that money just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and gets spread out further and further and further. And I think if you're like natural parity as opposed to forced parity that's in Major League Soccer, if you like natural parity, there's nothing but good for having teams like this. And as I've said before on this show, Leipzig also is doing a lot of stuff at the youth, at the development level, which is really, I think, where they can set themselves apart from other programs. And their key there will be that, Dortmund has a great youth program as well. But what happens in Germany is that Munich essentially just buys the best young players, the best German young players, and takes them away from their competitors. If you can have the money behind it, like Leipzig seems to, then maybe you can maintain some of those great talents that you produce, and eventually maybe that bridge can get closed a little bit. Kevin, any final thoughts on the Bundesliga? We did mention the Julian Green, actually. We'll go there quickly. He did sign a contract with Stuttgart today. Stuttgart's in B2, of course. There's not much to say on it other than it's probably for the best for the kid's development. He clearly was not going to break through at Bayern Munich anytime soon. And to go down to B2. which is a very good level of football, a level of football that, in my mind, is higher than MLS for sure. So if any American listeners out there that are concerned about the fact that he's dropped out of the main Bundesliga, I think should reassure themselves that he's going to be playing for a top B2 team that will probably go up, if not next year, in the near future, and playing at a level that is at least as high, if not higher, than Major League Soccer. There's nothing but good things to happen with him getting more playing time, Kevin.
No, exactly. That's it's beneficial for him, and it's beneficial probably for his development. Like you mentioned, he was not a player that was chosen by Ancelotti. He was more under Pep, so it'll be interesting to see how he fits in Stuttgart and how he adapts at that level if he gets a lot more playing time, because hopefully that's the reasoning behind it, is to get actual playing time in a team.
All right, let's take a quick break. Come back with a few bits and bites before we end with something a little more fun to end the show.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
And Duane, I was talking about home openers for Major League Soccer.
Yes.
March 3rd, 2017, the Portland Timbers host Minnesota United at Providence Park in Portland for the first game of the 2017 Major League Soccer season.
A different one. I guess maybe an expansion team, and there has been a history of having the expansion teams play early. I'm really worried about Minnesota, Kevin. I'm really worried that they're going to be DC United a couple years ago, 3 wins, bad, but nonetheless.
All right, it continues Saturday, March 4th with Columbus Crew Chicago Fire at 2 p.m., LA Galaxy versus FC Dallas at StubHub Center at 4:30, Real Salt Lake versus Toronto FC at Rio Tinto, 6 p.m., Colorado Rapids, New England, 7 p.m., DC United Sporting Kansas City, 8:30, Houston Dynamo Seattle Sounders, and to finish the day at 10 p.m. Eastern, San Jose Earthquake versus Montreal Impact for the big Saturday. And on a Sunday, Orlando City opens its new stadium versus NYCFC in Orlando at 5 p.m. Atlanta United, their first game ever, versus the New York Red Bulls at 7 p.m. Finish by Vancouver at 9:30.
There you go. Yeah, it would be nice one year if Major League Soccer would allow Toronto or Montreal to start the first kick at home, but I guess Montreal has at the Big O.
Yeah, but you just have to go to week 2. Montreal hosts the MLS Cup champions, Seattle Sounders, at 7 p.m. at the Olympic Stadium. For TFC, you go to week 5.
Oh, God.
March 31st, TFC versus Sporting Kansas City at BMO Field. And for Vancouver, let me just trying to find this right now. Vancouver's first game is March 5th, the Sunday at home versus the Philadelphia Union. So here's your 3 Canadian home openers.
Yeah, look, and I'm going to criticize MLS for this and for TFC for forcing this issue. 4-week road trip to start the season is ridiculous. Why aren't they playing earlier in March? Like they proved in December 10th that you can play a game there. At any rate, that's neither here nor there. It's never going to happen. So you might as well get past it unless TFC wants to move to the Dome, which I do not believe is even logistically possible anymore. And that's something that I haven't confirmed one way or the other, but I know that they dug like huge like pits out to make the base pass in there. So I believe that if TFC ever wanted to play at the Sky Dome again, they would have to play similar to NYCFC at Yankee Stadium. And I don't think anyone wants that. So at any rate, it's a bit of a complaint ongoing here in Toronto that they would love to have a game played earlier in the year, but I believe that MLSE believes and MLS believes that they get a bigger number, that they get a full house if they play it a little bit later on. It's not like it's, this past couple years where they were playing into May, but certainly it is going to make for a bit of a condensed schedule, if not as crazy of a condensed home schedule as we've seen in the past few years.
And another key matchup, Sunday, March 12th, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Minnesota United versus Atlanta United, the first game at TCF Bank Stadium and the first meeting between the 2 expansion team, Minnesota, Atlanta, March 12th.
Fair enough. All right. You wanted to talk a little bit about power rankings. I think it's because Chelsea's ranked number one. That might have been why you wanted to talk about the Kick power rankings.
I thought it was interesting. Kick, what used to be Kick TV, but Kick power rankings, 10 teams that they figure in the world would be there. For sure, there's like a few trolls, like Feyenoord is not number 9 in the world. Please. No, they're not. There's a few teams that would have something to say. Probably same for Boca Juniors. But Chelsea, Madrid, Juventus, Barcelona. That's the top 4. Is Chelsea really better than Madrid? I don't know, because exactly. Madrid is winning everything everywhere. They got 2 losses and 3 trophies in the last 12 months. So, yes, Chelsea is in the Premier League having such a success because of no European distraction, because of that focus you can put on the league, but those habits that routine you can continue to go with, and this is really helpful during a long season. That's why baseball, it's the same day in, day out, outside of the calendar changing the schedule. They only have the Premier League and a few cup games to worry about, but for Madrid, they're traveling to Japan to win trophies, going back and winning still in La Liga. So no, Madrid is, of course, I think the best team in the world. What I was thinking is Nice. Do you really think a team like Nice, that it's actually dominating in France right now? Surprisingly, it's probably not top 5 in the world, but it's interesting when you put comparison between teams that don't play each other this year. How can they fare? It's kind of like fantasy warfare.
Yeah, certainly. And the Chelsea one is interesting in the sense is you have a team that is dominating what is clearly one of the top 4 teams in the world, but is not in the Champions League. So you don't have the direct comparison. But then it is impossible to also then separate the fact that they aren't playing in the Champions League with the fact that they are dominating domestically. And I think back to Liverpool in 2014 when I say that. I don't think anyone thought Liverpool was the best team in the world when they were leading the Premier League for so many weeks of that season. So we regress there a little bit. Chelsea obviously is probably a top 10 team in the world, though, and we all agree that their season of 2015 was an anomaly and really had related to distractions around it more than anything else. We talked in the last one, we alluded to it, so we might as well finish the conversation in terms of, this is a generic barstool kind of conversation, but where are the top leagues in the world ranking right now? I think for a lot of people, they still cling on to the whole England is the best league in the world stuff, but I think that's pretty clear that it's not the case. La
Liga, I think La Liga would take, just because they are able to create the 2 teams that are probably the best 2 teams in the world, in Madrid and Barcelona.
Yeah, well, and La Liga to me is clearly the number 1 league in the world, and it goes beyond those top 2 teams, though, Kevin, in my mind.
Yes, but let's say that the top 10 of La Liga is the best league in the world. Bottom 10, I'm not sure, but top 10, clearly.
I look at the success La Liga has in Europa League, and part of that's that they pay attention to it more than certainly Italy's done in the past, certainly England's done in the past, but they also have had a great deal of success. And, we joke about Sevilla being the annual Europa League champion, but certainly that does speak to the depth of those top 10 teams, as you mentioned, and their ability to compete. I don't know where, Espanyol would fit in the world's ranking. I really don't, because you don't get a chance to see them compete against teams outside of their own country very often, if at all. And that sort of makes it difficult to compare. You look at the Italian league. I think, to put my rankings out there, I think the German league right now, top to bottom, is the second best league in the world. But the top, to do your comparison, if you compare top 10 to top 10, it might be below England at that point. So England's third in my mind, and Serie A is fourth. France is clearly fifth. Serie A, until the Milan clubs sort of rise up and become what they once were again, and someone competes with Juventus at the top, I don't think you can really have a conversation that they are anything other than the fourth team, right, or fourth league right now, Kevin.
No, exactly. Outside of Napoli, recently, both Milan clubs were unable to have the throne of best teams in Italy that they used to have for both AC and Inter. Juventus has been dominating the Scudetto for 10 years. Nobody really giving them a fair shot year to year. Some of challengers appear, then disappear. It's been more, like I say 10 years, I'm exaggerating a little, like 2011, 2012, you had the AC Milan teams that were deep in Europe and were successful nationally as well. But those times have far gone. Nesta has been retired for a long time. So that aspect to it is, it's been Juventus for the last 5 years for sure.
Yeah, well, to me, it's AC Milan's drop has been what has precipitated Italy's sort of overall drop in form. Milan and Juventus together 1-2, with Napoli pulling up every so often, Inter pulling up every so often to challenge them as well. But those two as the great old rivals within that country, that has sort of slipped. And you know, I know a lot of people don't like AC Milan, just like a lot of people don't like Juventus. But if you want that league to be successful, I think you need those two teams battling pretty consistently at the top. And it would be nice to get back to that again, because I do like watching Serie A, but it's hard to get dragged into that league if again the title is decided in November, like it often is.
Yeah, one of my favorite players actually plays in Serie A with Napoli, and that's Marek Hamšík. I'm a fan of long shots and long goals from deep and from 30 yards out. I always get my fix watching him, his highlights at least once a year of him doing all those goals for Napoli, right? But Napoli top 10 in the world, maybe. But Feyenoord in number 9, that's where I'm like, okay, this is bordering the troll threshold here.
All right. Let's move on to something a little different here. There was an article that came out today out of Barcelona, and this just speaks to the whole Messi-Ronaldo thing. We didn't talk about the golden
the Ballon d'Or. The Ballon d'Or, yeah.
Ballon d'Or.
But first of all, let's just go there. Messi or Ronaldo. In the last 12 months, look at what Ronaldo won and how he literally won everything from Euro to Champions League to La Liga to Golden Boots to basically he won everything he could in the last 12 months.
Precisely. And, you know, look, the rivalry is the rivalry, and Messi is a brilliant player, quite clearly. But to suggest that anyone other than Cristiano Ronaldo deserved the Ballon d'Or this year is ludicrous. It's not defendable in any real way.
Like,
I mean, Messi's
the best team player ever. He's the best player ever, probably. Ronaldo's probably the most prolific player. Those are two different things.
Yeah, comparing eras is very difficult, obviously. I think Messi is the best pure scorer that the game has ever seen. That's what I've always said when I've been asked this question in general interest interviews that I've done in the past, when they ask what the best player of all time is and they have to come out of this at the top. I always say that it's, you know, it's like Messi scores goals for fun, and he scores goals in a way that very few players ever have. He has the ability to finish in a greater capacity than anyone else. Ronaldo is a more muscular, powerful, traditional athlete that does a lot more than just score goals out there. And I think that maybe the overall game that Ronaldo provides might be a little stronger than Messi, but Messi is surrounded by players that allow him to focus more entirely on what he does. So it's very difficult to compare. But when you're talking about this particular year, I don't think there's much question whatsoever that it was Ronaldo. Just the reason we're talking about this now a couple weeks later is because of the height of MLS Cup when this got announced. So we just let it slide at that point. The question that I always have, and I think a more interesting debate is it who in your mind, you know, I'm putting you on the spot. I have my guess. I know who it is. Who the third is in your mind? Who the third best player this year was? Because that's the more interesting debate as of late, because we know who the top two are going into every year.
It's interesting, right? This year, third depends if you take the last 6 months, the last 12 months. I would say Eden Hazard the last 6 months, but if you do the last 12 months, I can't say that. It's hard. Diego Costa last few weeks would be that player, but over the last 12 months, I don't know. It is getting a tough decision here. Yeah, you do put me on the spot, but I'm trying to figure out what.
Well, I'll give you mine, and we can go off that.
Well, Griezmann with France played amazing, but he's struggling right now in Atletico. So,
when you look at Atletico, Atleti going to the Champions League final again, a club of their resources getting that deep, him playing as well as he did within the Euros, Griezmann to me was the number 3 this year. But again, we're talking about a gap of, I don't even think it's a ocean away from the other two player competitors in this award, and that does make it kind of a topic point that you don't want to debate a lot, because really you're just having the same conversation over and over again, which is Messi v Ronaldo, and it's flared up again today because of this article, which is all over the place. But nonetheless, one of these guys sort of spur off the other one, and I think that we're ultimately quite privileged to be living in a time where we're able to watch both of these guys. But at any rate, Griezmann would be my pick for number 3. But I could go Costa too, compared to what he's doing right now. Again, with last season, it's hard to ignore.
Exactly. And for the Ballon d'Or, you don't necessarily consider like a few weeks up to it. It's the months before, right? So That's why I hesitated before putting Costa and Hazard there, because yes, the way they're playing now for Chelsea, especially Costa, it's lights out. But if you were going 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, it's not necessarily the case.
All right. Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to, do what everyone does. We're going to give our Christmas gifts out to all of our favorite teams.
You mind if we hear some tunes? Hey, that'll work. You got any Christmas music? This is Christmas music.
December 24th on Hollis Ave at the dark. When I see the man chilling with his dog at the park, I approached him very slowly with my heart full of fear. Looked at his dog, oh my God, ill reindeer.
And just want to take this opportunity to wish all of our listeners a very happy holiday season from the Two Solitudes and the Five Rings podcast. From both myself and Kevin, we wish you all the best.
Happy holidays indeed. Kevin, I'm going to start this way. We're going to give our gifts. And this is something that a lot of podcasts do. And I actually originally, Kevin stopped me. I was going to do more of these, but then I realized that probably just one block was enough. We'll have a little fun and then we'll go back to we'll get back to business, not do it for 2 days straight. That was just me being lazy this morning, really, is what it came down to. Right. The one I'm going to give, the example I gave you is I'm going to put that alive because I think it's pretty apt. So my first gift I'm going to give out, and these can go for your Premier League teams, you can go for your Canadian MLS teams, your MLS teams, wherever you want to go with this is what we're going to do here. My first gift is, as a big Doctor Who fan, I know that the TARDIS has a device within it that's never explained very well because it's science-y, Y&C, to use some Doctor Who-isms there. So it doesn't really explain, but what it does is it allows the Doctor to speak in his natural way and be heard in the natural way that the person he's speaking to wants to be heard. So I'm going to give whatever that device is to Bob Bradley. So that when Bob Bradley's doing interviews and talking about soccer and fields, that all the English fans hear is pitches and football and tables and all that sort of stuff, so that he can be judged
and
appropriately.
Pace instead of speed, tactics instead of system. Yeah, those type of translation. That's a pretty good one. All right, I will go with one, and that one is for Pep Guardiola. Having him, I give him patience to go through those tough post-game media press conferences.
Patience is a virtue with Pep, and looks like he wants to strangle some people. He's funny in the sense that, a lot of the top managers have found the journalists to be tedious in the past. And in fairness, English journalists often can be tedious. And I don't know what that exactly says about the media over there, other than the fact that they're constantly trying to find. Well, that's what exactly it says there. It's rather than trying to cover the game,
rather than understand or try to break down games and why it's. Is there something happening? Is there something? Is there controversy? Is there exactly?
Answer was when someone asked him. This is early on this year, obviously, because it's off the table now. So, do you think is winning the quad your focus this year? And he literally went. And like an audible sigh before he answered the question.
You're like, are you serious right now? That's what I meant. Like, come on, is that really a question?
I've been here for a month. You're already asking me if I'm going to win all 4 trophies.
I haven't won 10 games yet, and you're asking me if I'm going to win 4 trophies? Really?
Yeah. And he said, in fairness, that it was going to be he was going to have a learning curve. And he said that it's going to take time to mold the squad in his vision. So obviously we were overreacting a little bit.
And here, I have another gift, Wayne. So sorry to jump.
So go ahead.
I have one. And that's a box full of good players. And I'm giving it to Minnesota United because it seems like they're going to need it, because right now, the way it looks, we're still not where you would like to be at this point, heading into a month before your training camp opening.
No, yeah, that's I haven't seen a launch like this since TFC. And that's going to terrify some Minnesota listeners out there. And I say that because well, it's not even, what it reminds me of is it doesn't necessarily remind me of TFC's launch. It reminds me of TFC 2009. And those that are old enough to remember TFC 2009 will realize, well, that's the year that Dan Gargan was signed on the way he literally was putting his boots on in a cab from the airport for the season opener, that they did not have enough players a week before the season started to fill in a proper roster. And there's certain aspects of Minnesota United that are starting to seem that way. They made a move yesterday where they traded for a draft pick, which suggests to me that their focus is going to almost entirely be to bring young guys and draft picks in and try and build, which terrifies me. I think that's MLS 1.0 thinking, and they're going to get murdered this year, but that could be wrong.
Yeah, we'll see, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they got young Venegas, so maybe he's the centerpiece.
All right, I'm going to give my next gift to MDS. I'm going to give him a stable NASL for the season because God, the man needs a league to coach in.
Oh, and I feel so bad.
It's
not that I feel bad for him, but I believe he's one of a great Canadian soccer coach's mind we have seen in this country. And I think it's not necessarily unfair, but it's a shame because he always had good opportunities, but it's never been easy for him, never been streamlined. It's always setbacks, and seems like the Deltas. We'll see. It's here. I got another one, Duane. I give this gift goes to our friend of the show, Peter Wilt, and the Chicago NASL project, and it's the same gift that you just gave to the Deltas.
Yeah, and I'm going to give, Nana Adekora signed with the Deltas recently this year, so obviously he gets the same gift, but I'm also going to give Nana and all of his teammates in Fort Lauderdale back pay for the last 6 months because it's got to be a tough Christmas season for them to not have been paid. I know they probably made a little bit more money than the average Joe there at times, but not a ton. They're not getting rich playing in the NHL, and we want stability. We're joking here a little bit, but we're not.
Joking, but we're not. There's been a crowd of funding for the Cosmos situation for the staff of the Cosmos that lost their job just a few weeks before Christmas, and there has been a fund going GoFundMe or some sort of crowdsourcing to help them through this tough period. So we're all jokes here, but sometimes joke comes close to reality.
Yeah. All right, my next gift is going to go to the supporters of the Stony Monday Riot guys and the Bytown Market guys. The Bytown Boys. Yeah, thank you. Those guys, the hardcore supporters of the Ottawa Fury. I'm going to give them both patience and an epiphany by their owner that the Canadian Premier League, when it launches, knock on wood, in 2018, is the right place for the Ottawa Fury, because I fully understand how frustrating it must be for them to have gone from the heights of competing for the NASL championship to what they would perceive as a slap in the face of becoming a farm team for the Montreal Impact. And whether or not that plays out that way or not, we don't exactly know yet, but I get the perception that they're coming with. And I do hope that they stick with that, because I think that they have developed into one of the great supporters cultures in the country right now, and there's a lot of potential for that to continue and to be big. And if they do go into the Canadian Premier League, they're going to start with a leg up on most teams in the sense that they have those hardcore supporters, which really can drive more general support. And I do hope that they stick with this through what might be a emotionally difficult year for them to adjust to what is going to look like, Kevin.
Yes, and my gift is a team at a high level to play with for Maxime Tissot, a player that I always enjoyed watching play for the Montreal Impact, that had great moments, great runs, great goals for the Impact a few times, great moments and glimpses of what his potential could be. And unfortunately, when he was loaned from Montreal, basically cut, went to Ottawa and finished the season in Ottawa, and now is looking for a place to play at a high level. I hope he finds a place to play. If it's in North America, it's in North America. If it's somewhere else, hopefully I want to see Max Tissot play with a high-level soccer team.
All right, Kyle Lauren. I'm giving Kyle Lauren a early exit from Orlando City, and I'm sorry, Orlando City fans that are listening out there right now. There's a lot going on down there that doesn't necessarily make a Canadian national team fan seem confident that this is still the best place for Lauren to continue. He has gotten a lot out of working with Kaká, I believe. I think he has become a better player for being down there. I do think it is time for him to be challenged at a slightly higher level. That he's been linked to Mexico in the past. I would love to see a Canadian in the Mexican League. I think that would be a great place for him to go for a year or so if he can't get into Europe. Obviously, the Portuguese links. I mean, Benfica would be that'd be sexy in terms of the day he held the strip up, but it wouldn't be so sexy the day he was loaned to wherever, right? So we do want him to find the right place. And I wouldn't be angry if he spent another year in Orlando, but I am also ready and think he is ready to move on and play at a higher level now. And, when I say higher level, I always feel bad because I know that primarily we're listening, Major League Soccer fans are listening to this, but I think you have to have a realistic understanding of where the league stands in the world pecking order and still appreciate it for what it is. That's where I come on that.
Yeah. My gift is a gift that actually is reality, and I'm quite jealous. And, the real gift is for us to go one day and enjoy the cheap concession prices at the upcoming Atlanta Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
I want to have my $2.50 giant hot dog and my $1 soda and my $1. Come on, maybe it's a good thing I can't go there every single weekend and actually enjoy those snacks because, well, maybe I wouldn't even fit through the door of my apartment. So maybe that's a good thing. But the gift is at least I want to go enjoy it once.
Yeah, look, Arthur Black deserves a lot of credit for that particular move that he wants to maintain. It's an understanding that
it's the case for the Falcons. Let's put it that way. It's not. It hasn't started with the United. This has been announced a few years, a year and a half ago, when the plans were announced for the stadium for the Falcons. So this is just a continuation of that vision that Arthur Blank has.
Yeah, look, as I was saying, that a lot of owners' instinct is to use financial models to find out what the absolute peak supply demand price is. That's just like, it's a business process. That's just how they think. Okay, well, obviously the market will bear this price, so we should charge this price, because if we charge 25 cents more, we're going to lose money because less people will buy. If we charge 25 cents less, then less people will make less money because we will be losing that 25 cents. But in this particular case, what you're looking at is having a long-term vision, and I think that that's something that should be applauded. As we see, and I'm going to use a hockey analogy here, so get your bingo cards out. It's like the Leafs. The Leafs are losing traction in the Toronto market because they've outpriced themselves to the average person. This is a measure that he is using to make sure that the Falcons primarily, but also Atlanta United, aren't outpriced, so that long-term you develop this loyalty, which will ultimately make you more money than just trying to gouge the fan for as much as you can in the stadium when you can. And I say this as someone who stands in a stadium where it's $14.75 a beer, right?
Yeah, Duane, if the one customer comes back for 14, 15 games a year and spends $20 every time, it's better than the guy coming one time and spending 100. Do the math.
Precisely. All right. Let's see. My last gift is going to be, I'm going to give the fans, my fellow supporters of Toronto FC, I'm going to give you the gift of distance and perception on the 2016 season, because as hard as it is right now to stomach the fact that they could not get that very last win, I think that there is a lot of positives, obviously, to winning an Eastern Conference championship in the playoffs and to competing to the very final game of the season. And it's going to be difficult to climb that mountain again. It's ominous to climb that mountain again, but at least we know now where the journey starts in Salt Lake City, and it is time to sort of refocus and get back in the business. Maybe Will Johnson moves on. Maybe that's the best for him. Maybe that gives an opportunity for Jay Chapman, say, or for Giroux to come back, and they're talking about Giroux may re-sign again, and that's a move that a lot of fans love here. It's going to be another adventure starting in 2017. It's going to be difficult to climb that mountain. It took Seattle how many years to do it, and that's an ominous thing to think about. But having that opportunity to host the MLS Cup final, there were moments in that day that we will remember for a long time, and I hope that the TFC fan out there, especially one that maybe came to it a little bit later and was disappointed by the way it ended, might stick with it, because I think the end of the journey will ultimately be sweeter if you remember and accept and embrace the bumps along the way. Kevin.
My last gift is for Didier Drogba. Didier, I give you the gift of no more turf, no more plastic pitch, and probably in the next 6 months, if you find a team and play, might be the last or 12 months of your career. Hopefully, you don't play on turf anymore.
Well, those fields in Africa might not be any better, but let's call it this.
Maybe you'll be missing turf in the next few weeks.
there might be some perception built there. All right, Kevin, we're going to stick 45 minutes today. I got some stuff to do for the Christmas season and so on and so forth. We're not too sure what the schedule is going to be for tomorrow. We will be back.
Full disclosure, I'm having surgery later on today. Nothing serious. Don't worry. It's in my mouth type of surgery. So we'll see if I'm able to speak tomorrow. That's why we'll see if we can do the show.
All right. If not, we'll maybe figure something out. But we'll let you know on our social media platforms. But as always, until then and until Friday, we'll let Kevin say goodbye.
Until next time, you can follow us on Twitter at 24th Minute for Duane, at Kevin Laramee for myself. Please follow me. I'm 3 off 1,000. Come on, give the poor boy a follow. And until next time, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.